Peter Pan, age 3, Palace Theatre, Manchester, taken by my parents, like so many kids of my generation. Not quite believing what I saw, but I certainly didn't believe the wires. I could see the wires. I could see they weren't flying. I thought, that's pathetic. Can't we have a real fairy, a real Tinkerbell? No. I missed the fact that I saw that the crocodile was a pretend crocodile, but I missed the fact that the dog was actually a small actor in a hairy rug, you know. But I remember we had to leave early to catch the train back home to Wigan, and we were in the dress circle. And as we turned to go through the doors, and I looked back at the stage, it was all starlit. It must have been late scene. And I said to myself, age 3, I'm going to come back. I want more of this. So it was as an audience that I fell in love with acting. Who are these people? How do they do it? I mean, what happens when you go through that door on the set? And, how does that curtain go up and down? All that. I wanted to get backstage. And of course, the way to do that is to become an actor. And so I acted an awful lot at school. And then with the local little theatre, community theatre in Wigan and Bolton, where we lived. And I saw a lot of acting, so it was all theatre, not the pictures. I mean, I don't know, our family didn't really go to the cinema very much. I think my parents were rather snooty about it. You know, they thought all cinemas were flea pits, and a lot of them were. But the theatre, and there were 3 of them in Bolton, doing different sorts of entertainment, that was thought appropriate. And so I'm doing a lot of theatre going. And then a lot of acting myself. And it wasn't that I was a particular show-off child. I know. I was a rather nervous one. So I think psychologically what was good about it all was that I discovered something that I was good at, that the parents approved of, that other adults had the same at school and elsewhere. And so Ian was the boy who acted. I sort of defined by that, and but I just enjoyed it, and I enjoyed being the centre of attention, because in the rest of my life I absolutely wasn't. You know, I was the quiet little retiring lad in the corner.
So the quiet little retiring lad didn't go to drama school, but you did win a scholarship to Cambridge University. How did performing there shape you as an actor?
Well, that was absolutely crucial. When I arrived at Cambridge, I mean, on a scholarship, I met young people like me who were as crazy about the theatre as I was. Michael Redgrave's son, Vanessa's younger brother, Corin, was my best friend at Cambridge, I think. Trevor Nunn, the man who went to run the Royal Shakespeare Company and the National Theatre and directed Cats and Les Miserables, was an actor there. Derek Jacobi, and many, many others, writers and subsequent critics, some of them. And there just was a feeling that if you were any good, it would be an easy jump from Cambridge to the profession. And it was, because the critics used to come down and review our shows. Before I'd left Cambridge, having done 21 plays, I had a whole stash of reviews from national newspapers that I could take around the regional repertory companies and try and get a job, and that's what I did. So at 22, I thought, I don't think I need to go to drama school. I've done an awful lot of acting. I know that I like it. I'm reasonably good, but much to learn. But I thought I'd rather learn on the job than learn in a classroom.
You mentioned you come from the Northwest. This was an era when regional accents maybe weren't as encouraged with actors as they are now. Did they knock that out of you somewhere and switch you to this lovely RP voice we hear in front of us now?
Well, at school I had a stronger northern accent than I did at home, because the lads at school had stronger accents than I did. So. But it was when I went to university and met all these snobbish boys from Eton and elsewhere who pointed a metaphorical finger at me. You can't speak properly. Oh dear, it was horrible. I couldn't say one. You say one. I still have a problem. I still can't say singing. How do you say it? Go on, say it.
Singing?
Ging. Oh, well, no. No, you shouldn't pronounce that middle G. Singing. But I want to say singing.
Well, I'm from the Northwest too.
Yeah, well, there you go. So it was at Cambridge that I began to drop my accent willfully. And it was, I wasn't quite up to the times because, other people of my generation, Alan Bates and Albert Finney, Tom Courtenay, Frank Finlay, they all used their native accent, proudly, I think. And they got to play classical parts, and they were using their own accent. But no, I thought if you're going to play Hamlet one day, you've got to speak proper. And I think you may have seen a little snippet of me in an early television with a very far back accent, which is, I didn't use that totally like that, but a little bit like that. And it's of late that I've frankly relaxed and gone back to the accent which I was still waiting to come out. And at drama schools today, they don't say get rid of your accent. They say be proud of your accent. It's you, your voice, your roots, your history, your family are all contained within your voice. Keep that, and then learn how to do other accents. And I've never quite been able to do that. And so you'll never see me play an American. I've been asked many times, but I just don't feel I could do it sufficiently well. Oh, I did once in Apt Pupil for Brown Singer. I played an American who had been a Nazi who'd escaped from Germany. And he had a German-Californian mixture. And so that was sort of all right.
Talking of learning to do things, so you make your way up in the theatre, you play a lot of the great Shakespearean roles. Not having had that formal drama school training, how did you develop the process, towards building a character? And was there a point where you thought, yes, now I know what I'm doing?
No, I still don't know what I'm doing. No, Laura Linney was saying this to me the other day. She said, I wish I had a method. And Kate Blanchett the same. We don't have any method. It would be wonderful to go into a rehearsal or prepare for rehearsal along lines that you knew would lead you to the goal. So I wait, talking about the theatre, I wait for I wait for inspiration to descend. And I tell you what, it can do. You'd just be doing a scene, you might be reading it, or you might be on your feet for the first time, and you'll do a scene, at the end the director will say, when you did that with your finger? Yeah, that was the character. That was it. You were absolutely him. Not anywhere else, but that. So you think, what did I feel when I was doing that? And it's DNA. It's an actor's DNA. You get the finger right, you can get the arm right, and you can get the posture right, and you can get maybe the walking right, and even the talking right. And, get one little thing right, and then you can imagine it throughout your body and throughout your mind and throughout your emotions. I think that's my method, but oh dear. I depend totally on a wonderful script and the advice of the director. And it's still a bewilderment to me that in movies you don't rehearse. You just arrive at the first day and do it. I once, Apt Pupil again with Brown Singer, I said, can we rehearse? Because I was working with the late Brad Renfro, a wonderful young actor from Alabama, I think. And I thought it would be a good idea if we rehearsed before we started shooting. And Brian said, okay. So we went in, the three of us, and we each had our scripts, and Brian said to me, so what do we do now? I said, well, Brad and I read the script. Okay, go ahead. And we read it. So what do I do? He said of himself. I said, well, you comment on what we've been doing. And at which point he threw the script across. He said, I can't do any of this rehearsing. And that was it. We just... But, we ended up, both of us, giving good performances. So But it's still a bewilderment to me how film actors can just arrive. I suppose they do an awful lot of preparation on their own. But I've never had a method, and I wish I had, but it's probably a bit late now.
Well, talking of film, a breakthrough performance for you was Richard III. How did you set about getting the movie version made? How easy was it? And what effect did that breakthrough have on your screen career?
Well, you're absolutely right. Richard III was the crucial leg up into movies. I've made a film, or a television film, probably every year of my acting life. But we'd done Richard III, directed by Richard Eyre, who was the director of the National Theatre at the time, and his designer, Bob Crowley. And the three of us decided how we would do Richard III. And we decided to set it in the 1930s, when it would have been conceivable that a member of the royal family could have taken over the country and ruled it as a tyrant, in the way that there were other tyrants in Europe at the time. Big success, played it across the world, actually, and across this country. And I thought this would make a very good film, and I put it to Richard Eyre, and he said, okay, write the script. So that's what I was doing. I came back from the play each night in the hotel room, and in this city, I finished the script. And showed it to Richard Eyre, and he said, well, I thought we were going to do this for TV. This is a film script. Oh, I said, no, I want to be... Well, he said, I can't direct it. I've got to run the National Theatre. So there was I with a script, and myself. And Ellen and Robbie Little in this town were keen on the idea. They didn't in the end manage to raise the money, but Lisa Katselis and her partner, Steve Bailey, did. But that took us about 2 years. I think I met every studio head in Hollywood and talked my way enthusiastically through the script, explained to them why Shakespeare could be popular, why they might even make their money back, and so on. Richard Longcrane came on board. He brilliant, wonderful. He knows everything about the cinema and nothing about Shakespeare, and I knew everything about Shakespeare and not too much about cinema. So we were ideal. We never argued, because we always knew that the other one knew best when we were talking about one or t'other. And together we reshaped the script and cast it. Well, a lot of friends came to be in it. Maggie Smith came along, and Jim Broadbent, and lots of wonderful actors. We had the cute idea that the two upstarts in the Richard III story, who marry into the royal family and are an awful bind, should be played by Americans, because it suited the sense that they were outsiders. And along came Annette Bening and Robert Downey Jr. to play those parts. And so we had a very good cast from the box office point of view, and the money was secure. Although I remember going in on the first day of first day of preparation for the film, and I bought some flowers for the secretaries, and out to Pinewood I went to deliver the flowers around, and the first AD said, would you pop in and see the director? And there was Richard, and I said, well, here we go, first day. And he said, I'm sorry, Ian, they pulled the plugs, we're not going to make the movie. Well, we had to raise a bit more money. When that was done, and we did it. And I could tell you many a story about how wonderful it was. And relatively easy for me, because I knew the part backwards. All I had to do was work out how to present it for the camera. And I rather daringly spoke directly to the camera in the soliloquies, which not many other actors had done before. But it works. It works all right. Well, this came out. I think there was a nomination for a Golden Globe. And suddenly, Ian McKellen was not just one of those actors who shouts in the evening, which is what theatre actors are supposed to do, but could temper a performance down to the level that would appeal to the camera. And so that was my calling card. But I'll tell you a story that leads on from this. Brian Singer again. It was casting this old Nazi living in California. It's a Stephen King novella. And he asked to see me, and The minute we met, he said, "Oh, you're too young. Oh, what a pity. Oh." Oh, I said, "Oh, well, never mind." And we had a nice meal together. And towards the dessert, he said, "Have you seen John Schlesinger's new movie?" I said, "What, Cold Comfort Farm?" "Yes," he said, "that's it." I said, "Yes, I have seen it." He said, who was the old guy who played the preacher?" I said, "That was me." He said, "You play old?" What? I said, "Yes, I'm an actor." So he gave me the part, and then he put me into X-Men. But it's luck, isn't it? It's all luck, chance, luck. The thing about luck is that you have to be ready for it. That's my advice to young people. Get ready for the moment when there might be some luck. Luck won't descend and put it all right. You've got to be ready for it.
We'll come back to Bryan Singer in a moment. Someone else who was very pivotal in your movie career, Bill Condon. He put you in a wonderful movie, Gods and Monsters.
Yes.
1998, you come out to Hollywood. It's about an English filmmaker in Hollywood. Why did you connect so well with that character of James Whale?
Well, he was gay. And that was an astonishing thing about him. He was working in Hollywood. He was the highest paid director in Hollywood. Frankenstein movies, Invisible Man, and others. Wonderful. But he was openly gay in the 1930s. I mean, you could put those people on one hand. It's extraordinary. So that appealed to me. I mean, like me, he came from the Black Country in the Midlands. I came from the North, and we both came to London, wanted to get into the theatre. He did as a designer, and then a director. He directed Journey's End, that wonderful play which he came to film in Hollywood. That's what brought him here. So we had a lot in common, and I came to Hollywood. I didn't stay, but he had done. There was nothing about him that I thought was difficult or opaque or I don't understand this. Absolutely clear, wonderful script by Bill Condon. He won the Oscar for it. And wonderful book by Christopher Brown, Father of Frankenstein, it's called. And I don't know, Bill is a wonderful director in that he casts very well. You never see a bad performance in his films. He casts the crew well. I've often thought the definition of a good director is someone who can hold a good party. You invite the right people. You know they're going to get on together. You attend to each of them. Make sure they're all happy. And Bill holds a very good party. And I saw that startlingly on the last film I've made, which is he's editing at the moment, Beauty and the Beast, which is the Disney film and Disney music, but with live action. I get to play Cogsworth the clock. I don't, alas, have a song. My name is Cogsworth.
I can't imagine why you don't have a song.
I'm a clock tick-tock. But no, I join in with other people's songs. But the day I went in to do my bit of acting as the clock when he's turned back into a major domo, Bill had on the set about 150 people, I mean performers, dancers, singers, actors, Audrey McDonald, Stanley Tucci, Emma Thompson, Emma Watson, Daniel Stevens, and Ewan McGregor were all there, and then all the extras dancing around them, and then the footmen standing around, and beyond then, of course, all the crew. So there would be about 200 people in that room, and Bill, little calm Bill, was in charge, and he was holding a party. And so I've seen him work on that lavish scale, and then on the confines of an independent movie, or two of them now, because of course he directed Mr. Holmes.
Certainly did. And let's go back to Bryan Singer. When he presented the idea of X-Men to you, how did you connect with that role? What was the way into you for playing the mutant Magneto?
Well, the X-Men movies were made because they'd been a success on television, like so many other films. I mean, we forget now that Superman was on television before it was on the big screen, and others too. Before that, of course, it was the comics. And we're going for a long, long time. And Marvel, who published the comics, told me that it was their favorite publication because it was actually about something. I mean, with all respect, Superman isn't about anything. It's a fantasy. It's about a man who changes his personality when he puts his underpants on. Spider-Man's a bit the same. You see. The Hulk, they're all the same. And I think James Bond is the same, you know. James Bond is the wimp who actually turns out to be a Superman, but you don't recognize it. Anyway. But X-Men is about the mutants. And I was playing one of them, Magneto, Master of Magnetism. They have, each of them, a special developed, God-given quality, which upsets the rest of the population because they don't have it, and they're frightened that people with special powers will be endanger the rest of the population. So as outsiders, mutants have to decide what they're going to do. Are they going to assimilate themselves, adjust and become part of society, or are they going to, which is Professor X's view, or are they going to do what Magneto suggests, which is no, stand up to ourselves by being potentially violent? That dilemma is in all civil rights movements, you know. Do we frighten the horses? Do we break the windows? Do we set off bombs because we know we're right? Or do we make the case? Do we argue it? And I know in gay rights, I take the latter point of view. Professor X, I'm a fan of. But when Brian presented it in these terms, I thought that was a project worth getting involved. And Marvel say that the people who read the comics are young blacks, young Jews, and young gays. They all relate to what it is to be a mutant. I'm sure the demographic of the audiences for the films is much wider than that, but nevertheless, it's even in all the fantasy, all the nonsense, all the thrills, of course, I kept thinking, this is a story worth telling. It's about something.
And it certainly proved to be in a wonderfully entertaining and successful franchise, as has been the Lord of the Rings films and The Hobbit. Now, in 2003, when that came into your life, no one in Hollywood was expecting just how big that was going to become. Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh maybe didn't have like a huge track record that would suggest it. So how did they make you buy into their vision?
I had read The Hobbit when I was young, but I hadn't graduated onto the great book, Lord of the Rings. I never worn the pin, you know, Gandalf for president, which was the famous... Lord of the Rings took off in America rather than England first, and so they came round to my house, like a couple of hobbits, actually. But I'm not sure that Peter Jackson was even wearing shoes. He never does in New Zealand. And they sat on my sofa and they showed me some designs and they talked about the story. And rather grandly, I said, well, let me read the script. Oh, dear. And I wasn't mad keen. It was a year living in New Zealand, a place I'd always wanted to visit. I'd heard how beautiful it was. A year away from home, on a script that wasn't quite complete, based on books that I didn't know about. It wasn't the huge, big, chance of a lifetime that it turned out to be. Oh. A number of stories involved in how I very nearly couldn't do it because initially I was asked by Tom Cruise to be in the Mission Impossible 2. And they would only show me a part of one scene. I couldn't read the whole script in case I told people. So I said, I'm sorry, I can't be in your film because I don't know what it is. And my agent said, you're turning down the chance to work with Tom Cruise? I said, well, I don't know if it is a chance. Well, I did. That movie delayed and delayed and delayed. Tony Hopkins played my part. And if I'd contracted myself to do that, I wouldn't have been able to do X-Men, and I wouldn't have been able to do Lord of the Rings. Now, I'd agreed to do X-Men first with Brian, and he told me that his dates had slipped, so that I now couldn't arrive in New Zealand on time to do Gandalf. So I had to call up Peter Jackson and say, sorry, I'm not doing it because I promised to work in the other film first. He said, well, I'll keep it open for a bit. And that night I was in Shiki's restaurant in London having a fish supper, and Bob Shea came in. I didn't know him. He put his hands on my shoulder and said, looking forward to working with you. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I've got to do X-Men. He said, leave it to me. Well, an arrangement was made, and Brian, bless his heart, Brian Singer couldn't put it in writing, but he said to me, hand on heart, I will make sure that you're ready if they can just slip their dates a little bit, and they did. And he finished me on time, and I started work on the first week of the millennium. And talking about what we thought was going to happen with this huge project, the internet had just been invented. You could send emails to people. You could access people's websites. You could begin to communicate with people who you would never meet. Like-minded people. And I used to send a regular diary from the set, as did Peter. And together we invented blogging.
Congratulations.
It had not been done before. I called it e-posts. Didn't catch on. Blogging. And we got messages back saying that there were many, many people who were very, very keen on the idea of this film as long as it was the film that they wanted to be made. That it was going to be their Middle Earth. And therefore they were constantly saying, you are going to include so-and-so, you're not going to cut out Bomberbill, one of the characters. There was some disapproval of me playing Gandalf because I was a gay man. Oh, pathetic. I mean, Gandalf isn't interested in sex. He's 7,000 years old. He's got over sex long ago. Anyway, we got the sense that there was an eager audience, and much to the disapproval of the PR people of the studio, under the radar, as it were, Peter and I were contacting these people and keeping them sweet. By the time the first film came out and we went back to New Zealand to do pickups on the second and then third films, we knew there were millions of people who couldn't wait for the films that were yet to come. And it's a very, very unusual situation to be in, to be making a film that you know is going to make an awful lot of money because the audience will definitely turn up to see it. So it was all charming, and to be placed at the center of all that, which I was a strange feeling. I still haven't quite got over it. I don't feel I can take any credit for the success of those films. I did my part. And of course, that's the nature of films, isn't it? I mean, thousands of people are responsible.
In the midst of starring in these huge franchises and inventing blogging, you go back to British television. You achieve a dream by guest starring in Coronation Street. Then later, you reteam with Derek Jacobi to do an ITV sitcom. You do Vicious. Recently, you've worked in The Dresser with Tony Hopkins on BBC Two. Now, most movie stars in huge franchises don't tell their agents, oh, I'm going to do British television. So why was it so important to you to go back home and do these projects?
It's me as the audience. I love Coronation Street. I love pantomime. I played Dame, Widow Twankey at the Old Vic. Twice. I've been in music videos with the Pet Shop Boys and George Ezra. I love it. I've been on The Simpsons. I love it all. I even quite like doing chat shows. You know, it's all a bit of a challenge. And So the idea that I would become exclusively a film actor, no, it's never crossed my mind. Not that I had to turn down lots and lots of movies. No, I haven't done that. But to lose touch with my roots and my enjoyment of, say, of playing Shakespeare, not to have played King Lear, seemed a bit perverse. And yes, we were on Broadway last year, Pat Stewart and I, Waiting for Godot, and I played that play 490 times since doing Gandalf, you know. So there are a few people who only know me as having been in Waiting for Godot. And the thrill of being in with a live audience is you can't beat it, really. And I suppose that's my first love, simply because by now I feel so confident on a stage. It has no terror for me. But in front of the camera, I'm terribly aware. See, I love you being here, but here there's a camera. And I don't know how close it is or how I've got to act for it. Well, I'm not acting for it. So I'm still a little bit apprehensive and still very well aware that there are so many accomplished, brilliant performers. Gina Rowland's picking up her award at the Academy the other night.
Talking of acclaimed, brilliant performances, we enjoyed you this year in Mr. Holmes, the iconic role of Sherlock Holmes, one you hadn't played before. You have to play him in his 60s and then later through to the age of 93. How did you approach it?
Well, as always, through the script. I mean, there it was. It was perfectly clear that it was a wonderful part when I read the script. It's always a good trick to play yourself very old and yourself a bit younger. The audience think, oh, how is that achieved? Well, simple. You just play two parts. You know, and Tom Hardy's done it in Legend. Have you seen Legend? About the Cray brothers, and he plays them both. And I sit there marveling. Well, the idea that Sherlock Holmes, who's been played by 130 actors, I think, before me, should be not a fictional character by Conan Doyle, but a real man who was fictionalized by Dr. Watson in the books that he wrote about him, is a cute one. And it allows you to have some genuine interest in Holmes as not just a detective, but as a person, as a man. And he's seen in this film to be rather wanting late in life, unhappy, in retirement, not really getting on with his housekeeper nor her son, losing his memory, wobbly on his pins, but niggling away at the back of his mind is the last case that was not solved to his satisfaction, and which sent him into retirement 30 years before. What was it about that case, he wonders, that changed my life, perhaps for the worst? And in solving that, he becomes a much nicer person. He discovers his heart and discovers that he can relate to other people and be friendly to them and be nice to them. It's got a happy ending. I like that. It's never too late, I suppose, is the message. He's 93 and he discovers friendship.
It's a happy ending to this part of the interview. Now we're going to go to the audience questions. So please raise your hand. And the first question is going to be over there, please. Thank you, on the end.
I was actually wondering how you find it acting against green screen. Was that a different experience? Do you find it constraining or freeing or difficult? Or?
No, I don't find a problem. Because when you're on the stage, you know, and you're Macbeth, you're not really in a castle. You're not really in Scotland. And that's not really Lady Macbeth, it's Judi Dench in my case. So, in a sense, stage scenery is a green screen, isn't it? And it's what happens within the bodies and the minds and the motions of the actors. And in fact, pretty well all the locations that you see Gandalf in, not when he goes to Rivendell, which is scenery, but not green screen, scenery. We were up that mountain, you know. We were along that river. We were in those woods. Now, we may have done some green screen when we got back for close-ups that had been missed in the studio. And it's true. In the scene I think you saw there, where he's got the face-off with the Balrog, that was all green screen, and I must say, pretty tricky. He's walking along a very narrow bridge, isn't he, with a perilous fall on either side. Well, that was just a white line in the studio I was walking on. And the Balrog, I said to Peter, oh, could you give me an idea of what the Balrog looks like? He said, we don't know, we've not designed it yet. He said, well, it's a lot of fire, it's a lot of smoke, and it's got a big long tail, and it's very threatening. It's very big. He said, your eye line is that yellow tennis ball on top of a stand, so just talk to that. Well, it's all acting, isn't it? So, but I did say on one occasion to this tennis ball, you shall not bounce! When I went back to do The Hobbit, the sophistication of technology had improved, and in my case, the opposite, because in order to shrink the actors and make Gandalf look tall, all the dwarves were in one set with their camera, and I was at another part of the studio in my green screen set with stands with the actors' faces on them. Now, I hadn't met the actors. I'd met the actors in their masks as the characters. We'd rehearsed a little bit. So when I came to look at these faces, I didn't know who the hell they were. And I was being fed their lines through here. So we were acting simultaneously with two cameras that were enslaved, they call it, doing exactly the same moves. And whoever was speaking, the light went on one of these stands. Well, at the end of a day of this, I was quietly crying into my beard. And I let my head drop, forgetting that the mic was right here, and I said, this isn't why I became an actor. But, you know, Peter Jackson, being the man he is, said, don't worry, I promise you we'll never, ever do that again. And there are other ways of coping with the height difference. But green screen on the whole, fine. And 3D cameras, same as ordinary cameras, no problem.
Matthew, 2 rows from the back, Matthew.
Good evening, Sir Ian. Picking up on your comment about the Scottish play, working opposite Judi Dench, when I saw you do the banquet scene, I've seen many productions of the play over the years, and I thought your performance in that scene was brilliant. You seem to be so affected, and I just wondered what process, if you can remember, what process you were going through at that time that created the saliva pouring down and so forth?
I don't know how that happened. It happened every time. Maybe because I'm a smoker. There's a lot of catarrh waiting to come out. Well, you come to the banquet scene, and Banquo's ghost appears. At least Macbeth sees the ghost. Nobody else sees it. So what do? The ghost doesn't speak, but clearly is a presence there. In most productions, in the Fassbender movie, the ghost appears. making everybody mad except Macbeth, because Macbeth sees the ghost, the audience sees the ghost, but everybody doesn't in the scene. Why can't they see the ghost? No. So the way to play that scene is not to have a ghost. It's in Macbeth's imagination. Is that a dagger I see before me? You don't have to have a dagger. You don't have to have the ghost. And so it's Macbeth who's mad. And the other people with the audience understand there is nothing there. Making it much more terrifying. So I think that simple solution to the scene gave me confidence in it. But by the time you've imagined there's a ghost of a man you've killed, your best friend, and your wife's getting a bit wobbly, and you're very, very guilty because you've killed the king, it doesn't take much imagination to get yourself into a real state. And of course, you've got unbelievable language to express your emotions. I think perhaps I did it a little bit too much, but I know the stream of stuff used to come out of my, I'm sorry, come out of my nose. Flicked its way out of the faces of the front row. The reason that works very well on, we put that on TV. You can still get it. I mean, many schools use it. It's only 2 hours. It's my sister, who was a teacher, used to play it for her girls, and close the drapes and leave the room, and she could hear them screaming inside. It's a fantastic horror thriller. But we had done it first in a very small theatre, 100 people at Stratford and the other place. And so that was a very easy thing to put in front of the camera, because none of us were projecting. We were just existing, being, I think, Michael Caine's expression for film acting when you're near the camera. And so Macbeth was a very important production for me, because I learned the delights of not projecting a performance in those big theatres that I'd had to tour around when I was a young man.
John? Yeah.
Hi, Ian.
Hello.
Hi, it's John. We were talking about Gary Essendine in Present Laughter years ago. You'd done him in Leeds and said he was one of the great performances or great roles that you wish you'd found earlier. What are you looking for next? What's your next role?
Gary Essendine. I mean, I do wish I'd found that a little bit earlier. I was a bit too old to play him. But my ex, one of my exes, who's a director, and I trust totally, came to see that in Leeds. And as we were called on for our 3rd or 4th or 5th curtain call, and I was back, I saw Sean getting up and putting his overcoat on and leaving the theatre. And he came round after. He said, "That is the worst performance in the worst production I've ever seen." But you didn't think so, did you? No. Well, what am I looking forward to doing now? Well, I've never had a wish list, a bucket list. No. You know, there are things that it's thought that I might want to do, like Falstaff. I keep saying no to Falstaff. I can't get it. I don't understand Falstaff at all. No. I've worked my way all through the Chekhovs. Nothing there I've missed. Oh dear. I think a new play, that's what I'd most like. And at least when you do a film, it is a new play. It's a new screenplay, isn't it, on the whole? Not many remakes. Whereas in the theatre, it's all about redoing familiar material. Nope, don't think I do.
There's a sea of hands up in this corner. Please plunge the microphone into whichever one is easiest to find. Thank you.
Hi. Excuse me. Hello, Ciaran. Earlier you were talking about learning and improving, and I'm wondering with some of your recent work if you might speak on some things you've learned or how your craft's improved to you in that.
I think it's with me that what I should attend to and have attended to is, Ian, will you stop acting? Just inhabit the character. Let the character inhabit you. Just behave. Just be. Now, you can't do that in a very, very big theatre. But the trouble of big theatres is, lovely as it is, when you get a full house, 2,000 people laughing. Thrilling. And pantomime, that's fine. You can do that in a big theatre. But when you're doing immaculate writing like Chekhov or Shakespeare, you don't want to get in the way of it too much. And I think I've done that. I look at my early work on screen as Hamlet, let's say, and it's as if I'm running alongside the character with some cliff notes telling the audience what they should think. You know. I don't think actors should tell the audience what to think. They should let the audience make up their own mind. And an example of this was when Derek and I did Vicious, which is broad. It's farce. Wonderful gags. Sitcom. Old-fashioned sitcom. Deliberately so. Well, we did it in a studio, and there was an audience of 500 people. Well, Derek and I, an audience. So if you see the first series of Vicious, we are overplaying like Bigelow. And when we came to do the second, I said, Derek, now we've really got to pull ourselves together. We've really got to. Now, Derek never watches himself on screen, but we were doing a chat show together, publicising the second series, in which we were both supposed to be acting at a proper level. And he was forced to see himself on the screen because we were in the studio, and he turned to me after and said, I thought we were meant to be doing less. Oh, dear. So, you know, still learning, and we are going to do one last Vicious, an hour-long special, and I promise you, I really am going to try and behave, really. Well, I don't know. It's not so much that you learn what you're going to do in the future, but you learn how to overcome the problems of the particular part, whatever they happen to be. And in my case, my problem I have most difficulty with, which is why I was pleased you mentioned the scene in Macbeth, is the character is in high emotion. I mean, I saw Gina Rowlands and come back to a great artist on screen, screaming her head off, and with absolute believability, and that's something that I find not impossible, but difficult. The thing I'm most proud of in my, You want to know what I'm most proud of?
Yes!
That I've learned how to get a laugh.
Timing.
I was taught by the late Bob Chetwin in Rep in Ipswich. He said, I think you should do a double take here. I said, what's a double take? He said, well, you listen to what he said, you look away and think about it, and then you very quickly think you can't believe your own ears. So, that's a double take, and you can multiply it.
Time has almost defeated us, but in conclusion, you were knighted by the Queen for services to acting. I can't imagine what you were thinking when the sword tapped you on the shoulder. How did you reflect on how far you'd come to reach that moment?
Well, for an actor to decide to get a knighthood, then there is a choice. You can turn it down. Paul Schofield did. Albert Finney did. Vanessa Redgrave has turned down a damehood. I mean, many people have. I took the knighthood on the advice of friends who said, in your concerned with gay rights, it'll be easier to have a knighthood. You know, you knock on doors and they'll open more easily. I'm afraid that's the way things are in the UK. But the other side of me, the biggest side really, was I'm now put in the company of my gigantic heroes. Sir Michael Redgrave, Sir John Gielgud, Sir Laurence Olivier, Sir Ralph Richardson, Sir Alec, Sir Ian. Oh, you feel a bit of a cheat, but you keep quiet about it. And she's very considerate. When the épée, it's not a big sword, it's an épée, you know, that's Hamlet uses. She presses it, puts it on your shoulder, and then she presses it down through your shoulder pad so you could actually feel the moment. So the disappointing thing was that this was a more recent time. I was going to the palace and getting a medal, and I stood up and she said, "You've been doing this for an awfully long time, haven't you?" And I said, "Not as long as you have, ma'am."
Ladies and gentlemen, Ian McKellen! Thank you, Sir Ian!